going on? Welcome back to the Friarside chat. We're doing another off-season episode. I guess actually, do we call it an off-season episode? It's Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2025, and pitchers and catchers have reported. So is it off-season anymore, or is it?
It's couples date day. The pitchers and catchers are together. We love this. We love that baseball season's back. We love that spring training has started. And we love that things are happening for the Padres this offseason. Finally.
I know, right? It's about damn time. I think during our last episode, we kind of were posing some hypotheticals of like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to sign, a Nick Pivetta? Wouldn't it be nice to like fill in a gap with like a Connor Joe or something? And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. But that's exactly what the Padres did.
Could you not have picked some bigger names? If it's not going to work, throw it in there.
I know.
Just kidding.
Wouldn't suck. But yeah, let's get into it. So, right, as I mentioned, Nick Pivetta, for those of you who don't know, starting pitcher, previously pitched with the Red Sox, predominantly. I don't know if he was on any other teams, was he? Phillies. He pitched on the Phillies, I guess, to start his career. And then, most of his 10 years with the Red Sox, 32-year-old right-hander, signs a 4-year deal with the Padres worth $55 million. First year of the contract, kind of interesting structure, right? We've got, a $3 million signing bonus and a $1 million salary in 2025, and then $19 million in 2026, $14 million in 2027, and $18 million in 2028. So kind of an interesting structure there. I'm sure it is to kind of help any budgetary woes from this year or what have you, but overall thoughts on the move?
I like it a lot. I mean, he was our top pitching want out of free agency between you and I. And it was a combination of things. It was a matter of being affordable. It was a matter of stuff. It was a matter of projectability. And he's 32 years old, right? He's in his prime. We like to have someone in their prime. We like a team player that is willing to take $4 million for year one when he could easily get more than that elsewhere.
Defer.
Yeah, defer. Take one out of the Dodger playbook.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
I'm excited about him. I think he rounds out the rotation, and the flexibility he's given them with that $1 to $4 million valuation on year one allows you to potentially keep a Cease, a King, and be a little bit more creative. And that's something that Preller hasn't lacked in his tenure here is creativity. So I'll give a tip of the cap on this one for sure, and really excited to have him. I mean, they were saying, he's a very metrically driven pitcher as far as the value that is labeled upon him. His ERA is career-wise over 4, but if you look at his projected ERA based on his stuff, the contact, amongst others, it's lower than that. And what better place to come and test that theory out than going from Fenway, the Green Monster, short wall and right, and then come into a more pitcher-friendly park in Petco with a good defense and Ruben Niebla. It's
I know that
a good recipe.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I think I guess it's the easy thing to say nowadays with Niebla, he's kind of the pitching goober, but I know that was like one of the first things that you and I talked about, like when the move was made and we hopped on the phone, right? It was similar, like, ooh, I wonder what Niebla is going to do for this guy's career. Because, right, like you said, like, I think everyone can see the potential there. Like he's had sparks of being like what seems like a very good pitcher. And then, right, his career numbers are good too, right? Like I have his little stat line up here, and yeah, like over the last 4 seasons, which are the, seasons where he pitched like 150 innings on average, it looks like a 2.5 WAR. I know these are pitchers, but like 2.5, 2.5, 2.3, 1.8. And then, right, ERA sits at about 4. But if you look at some of the other metrics there, like ERA plus is over 100. WHIP is, hovering at like 112, it looks like on average. So it's like not bad. Like he's got a lot of great metrics. He's going to have a good, right, pitching coach to work with. Everything you said, I'm just basically echoing what you say. What you're saying.
Well,
I think good move.
On that note, though, too, I mean, I feel like for so many people, they come in here and Niebla really has to fix them or elevate them to a new level. And I don't think that's necessarily the case with him. I mean, obviously, he's going to benefit from having a good mind in his corner. But this is a guy who has dominant stuff. He is a high strikeout, low walk guy who I really think truly just needs not even a change of scenery because he's not liking being a Red Sox. It's just, why don't we add a plus defense behind you and a ballpark
Hmm.
that keeps the ball in the yard a little bit more? You combine those
Hmm.
two things, and I guarantee you this guy's a sub-4 ERA pitcher. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
hoping for. And if you can have a 3-point-something ERA in your 4 spot or 3, I think this guy has the potential to bump himself up in the rotation to a 2 or 3 guy down the road. So
Yeah, I
really
totally
excited to
agree.
have him.
Yeah, I was gonna mention, yeah, I think it's an easy slot right into the rotation, right? Which is exactly what the Padres needed. And I want to talk about that a little bit more later on too. But before we hop into like the rotation and pitching staff as a whole, wasn't the only signing that the Padres made. Earlier, was it just yesterday actually? Kyle Hart, 32-year-old left-handed pitcher, signs with the Padres for a what did he sign for? 1 year, 1.5 mil and a
Yep.
club option, I think, for the next year, I think
Yeah.
is what we're seeing. Like, I mean, why not? And I wanted to look this guy up a little bit more too, just because I hadn't heard the name. So like when I first heard they sign, I'm like,
You don't
it's
follow
a
the
minor league
KBO?
deal. Come on, dude. But
ESPN 8,
anyways,
Yocho.
I know, right? Evidently we should. All these players coming out of everywhere now. But anyways, 6'5", 200. I didn't realize he was that big of a dude. Um, seems like tall, maybe a little lanky actually at 200 pounds or 6'5". But yeah, won the Cy Young equivalent of the Cy Young Award in the KBO last year. 2.69 ERA, 157 innings pitched, 182 strikeouts. I mean, great
And
year.
didn't walk
Great
a
year
lot
for
of
the
guys.
dude.
Didn't walk
Yeah,
a lot of guys. So
38. Yep, 38 base on balls.
say
Very
what you will
nice.
about the KBO and the batters there. You can make the argument that he doesn't have to pitch around him as much, and maybe that plays into the walk ratio. But the lack of walks, even against lesser dominant hitting, means he can locate. And a lefty who can locate, who has strikeout stuff, because the strikeout percentage in the KBO that year was over
Yep.
30% as well. Over
Hmm.
30% on the Ks, under 6% on the walks.
Yeah.
That's a
Hmm.
great ratio, something to play with and something to gamble on at 1.5 million. The club
Yeah.
option on the back end is gravy. If things
Huge.
go well,
Right.
we'll keep you. That's great.
Take him. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And yeah, it's always really interesting. I think we've talked about it before. We talked about it with like the NPB and now KBO and all these other international leagues, right? But it's like the level of play internationally just continues to, I think, inch its way closer to the major league level, which obviously opens up avenues for guys to develop, maybe you don't necessarily want to sit around in a minor league setting and whatever it is and, get a ton of innings in, get some, different style approaches towards the game or whatever, right? And playing against these other players. So I think it's really cool to see these guys kind of take all these different directions to get to the bigs. And then also it seems like the Padres are one of those teams that's kind of capitalizing on this trend. Like was it didn't didn't
Nick
Robert
Martinez.
Suarez do the same thing too?
Yes. Suarez
Right?
and Nick Martinez.
And Nick Martinez. And then yeah, even just around the league, like I think a good example, like I think is Merrill Kelly, I think, was the same, like
Mhm.
similar story, right? Like struggled early on his career in the majors. I think he went to the KBO and then came back and, obviously like he's been great over the last couple of years. So we're hoping that the Padres just found a left-handed Merrill Kelly for the next however many years to come. That would be pretty awesome. But very interesting signing. Kind
Well,
of
on
came
that
out of
note, too,
nowhere.
I've got a piece on him too, because I was very intrigued by seeing this, not knowing the name, but also, for those who care, that's a left-hander in the
Hmm.
starting rotation, which we are lacking. So you have this gamble for a guy in the 5th spot, and there's a lot of competition for that 5th spot, but a lot of upside for him. And to be honest with you, like you look at his MLB track record, he's got a handful of outings, and it's over a 10 ERA. So that doesn't look great. But to address that, I just saw his first interview as a Padre in
Hmm.
Peoria. They
Hmm.
asked him, what brought you here? What do you think about the last year that you just had in the KBO? And what brought him here was the drive to win now, the
Hmm.
importance of feeling wanted, which the Padres have expressed with him, and just the ability to compete and having a positive culture. I think the way he described it was when he was with the Red Sox, in the minor league system, he didn't really know who he was. He was trying to figure it out, trying to find
Hmm.
his way into the MLB on that kind of singular path of do what they're asking of you, listen to what they say because that's your best chance of getting there. And what
Right.
he really attested his success to was having a blank slate to go play for the Dinos in the KBO and being
Dinos.
able to just do his thing, find himself, and hopefully that translates here for the Padres. But really excited to have this guy.
Nice. And
Uh,
yeah, like another element too, right? Like little bit of a chip on your shoulder, right? Like you were here, didn't work out, had to, go somewhere else, and teams maybe didn't really believe in you at the time. So I kind of love that. I feel like he's going to come in right with a little bit of like that fight. He's got something to prove, which is kind of cool. And right, like you said too, also not even guaranteed a spot, right? So like something to prove, going to be competing for that 5 spot. Really good stuff.
Gonna
Fan
be an
of all
exciting
those things,
spring.
honestly. Yeah, awesome. Staying on the topic of pitching for the time being then. So as it kind of stands right now, right? If we look at the rotation, we're looking at, and this is probably what I would say. It's probably Cease in the 1, King 2, Darvish 3, Pivetta 4, and then 5 is a toss up between Hart, probably Vasquez and Waldron, which
Don't
it all
forget
seems
that.
like are all pretty viable options. And then on top of that, too, like how do these moves impact a Cease trade or the potential for a King trade? I think of the two, it seems like Cease is the more likely candidate to be dealt. Do you think these moves, these acquisitions, play into what might be going on with any potential trades?
I think I'm so glad you brought it up because it's something that I don't think has been talked about as broadly in the public eye. I think we've touched on a few things. One, credit to Preller for rounding out a lot of the holes in the team. You've addressed left field, you've addressed catcher, and you've addressed adding depth to your starting pitching, which were all question marks, right? Well, what wasn't talked about was the fact that with all of those question marks that were previously there, Preller did not come from a point of high leverage in his trade negotiations. The other teams knew that you had all these gaps that you needed to
Yep.
fill. You had
Yep.
a fan base that was pretty not happy with the lack of movement
Yeah.
happening
Pretty
throughout the whole
livid.
offseason. Upset,
Yeah.
heated,
Yeah.
livid. But
Yeah.
now he's got leverage. You can go into opening day and have a
Hmm.
formidable team, and not
Yeah.
even formidable, a good-looking team on
Yeah.
paper. Send them out there and be good to go. So now his leverage just got way higher. I think what he has done, spending less than 10 million to fill all those, has
Yep.
done way more for his bargaining power in future trades than it even has in making our team better.
Yep.
Now, he has expressed that Cease and King look to stay. They have visions of them staying here. Adversely, when has he ever said that someone's on the block and he
I
needs
know.
them to go? So, take it with a grain of salt. But,
Hmm.
financially, they're in a spot where they can keep Cease and King if they choose to and think that that's the best route to try and win now.
Yeah.
Now, I am in the camp of, well, now you're in a great bargaining spot to get rid of Suarez and really try to just
Hmm.
improve your team versus need to fill your team. So that's how I feel about it and what all these acquisitions have done for his trading power. But I'm interested to see what happens because you never know with him.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. And it just kind of like clicked for me. Like I was still in the camp when the moves were made. I was more just like, oh, I wonder what that's gonna mean. What that's gonna mean. But you kind of, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Like, yeah, you're right. Because now we come to the table with a little bit more sense of we're good. Like we
Mm-hmm.
don't need to make this trade. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? As before the Pavetta and Hart signing, it was like, ooh, you guys are in trouble. Um,
Yep.
so
The
yeah, that's
potential
a
to get
really good
fleeced
point.
has gone down a lot. Now it's
Yeah.
take it or leave it.
Yep.
We don't have to say yes.
Hmm. Hmm. Very good. Very good point. Very good point. But then yeah, and then just yeah, I'm really excited about that battle for the 5 spot. I kind of love that.
There's what's crazy, Vince, and the listeners, is we're hearing about names that we already know, right? We've got, you know, Vasquez, Brito, well, now Hart, we're learning about
Hmm.
him, Waldron,
Patino. Yep.
Patino, right?
Yep.
These are all names we know. We're not even talking about the prospects who have been working their way up over the last
Oh,
years.
that's right. You're on your
And
little secret mission project,
yep,
TFC Fireside Chat, little sneak peek episode. That's
there
right. I'm
will
excited to see
there will
that.
be an episode going over all top 30 Padre prospects, and
Love
you
it.
don't want to miss it because
Wow.
there's a lot of names that nobody's ever heard of, and there's some quiet excitement down there. It took
Mhm.
me really doing some digging, but the dig was worth the gold that came out. There are some really exciting prospects, and oddly enough, bullpen prospects and ones you've never
Great.
heard of, but that can come
Yeah.
up
Awesome.
later. We've had such a strong bullpen that they haven't had a route up, but there's a lot of moving pieces, and there's some starters too that are coming down the pipeline, and at least three that were projected to make their debuts this year. So we'll
Awesome.
go over that more in that episode. But yeah, there's a lot of excitement on that
Awesome.
5 spot.
I'm stoked. I'm stoked for that. Um, cool. Let's shift gears now. Let's go on the position player side of things, right? Like the Padres didn't just make moves with pitchers. We also signed, at least from the last time we talked, these are a little bit spaced out, but signed at least, and I might even be missing some of them, at least three major league caliber players. Starting with Elias Diaz, who's returning. Obviously, like we had him for a little bit last year, and then the Padres go ahead and sign him to a 1 year deal this year. I think it's worth. Let's see. I had his contract. Is it 3 million? I think it's 1 or 3.5 mil for 1 year. And it sure seems like all indications is that right, like him and Campy going to be locking it down behind the plate this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Diaz is not the most exciting sign, but I also feel he didn't get the most realistic shot. He came in midstream, had to get his footing, and it's not easy for everyone to do that, especially in the catching position where you're
Hmm.
also managing the bullpen, you're managing your starting staff. There's a lot that goes into it, and he's a former All-Star, and his swing looked nice. He played a
Yeah.
decent backstop, and now he's going into the year really looking as maybe the number one
Hmm.
guy locked in to be the starting catcher. Camposano has another year to try and win that spot from him, but if anything that we've seen over the last couple of years, we've noticed is it's really a tandem behind home
Yeah.
plate. They run
Hmm.
with two catchers, and if one starts to get so hot with the bat, then they start to really run away with more of the starting gig. But they're
Yep.
both going to get an opportunity, and it's really Brett Sullivan and Maldonado that are going to have to work to get
Kind of
into that
compete for
mix.
that extra
And
spot.
honestly, I think Camposano is on the lower. He's second tier. Like if anyone's going to get that spot taken from him, it looks like it might be Campy. So
Yeah.
uh, it'll be interesting. I like the signing though. I think he'll perform better than he did at the second half of last year, having a
Yeah.
full year under his belt and an off season to get ready with his guys.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a couple other things I want to add on top of that is it seemed like too, like what was so magical about last year's team, right, was I think the camaraderie and just the overall just the vibes were just really high.
Totally.
Um and I think you could even see that. I think Diaz was one of those guys. It seemed like he came in late in the season, but he just slotted right in. And we saw on I guess even some of the social media posts and stuff, he was already boys, with all the guys, which was awesome. Love to see that, it seems like culture fit. He's going to be a perfect fit. It seems like. And then two, right? Yeah, you mentioned he's always kind of been more of like a bat first guy. Over his career and then right had a little bit of troubles in maybe the last year or two. But I think it's still in there. I think he's still obviously got a lot in the tank there. I think he's also going to have more protection than he's ever had, right? Like coming from a
Totally.
Colorado team, which, obviously offense is always going to be a thing in Coors Field, but the team in general isn't as deep as the Padres are. So I think it's going to take a little bit of pressure off him, which will probably, I think, do well. The runners in scoring position for him, the whole thing, right? Like that we always see that translate in offensive numbers. And then another aspect of his game is that I wanted to look up his defense, right? Because I think everyone was kind of saying he's, bat first, defense second. Last year, he actually was like top 30 percentile for framing and also pop time in the MLB. So he, obviously he's making improvements in those fields. So love to see that. Love to see it, people progressing on all the aspects of their game as their career goes on, which is always nice to see.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Both those catchers have upside. They have
mhm,
not hit their potential for from last year at least.
yeah. Let's go on to the next free agent that we signed. So Padres signed Connor Joe, the local kid, Poway High School. 1 year, $1 million deal.
Who knew he was that affordable?
I know. I
I
mean,
dare to say cheap. I mean, honestly, 1 million. I did not think he was valued that low. I think
yeah,
that's a
I
steal.
would. I kind of had the same thought. I looked at the numbers, kind of his stat line throughout the years. In parts of 5 seasons, he's played 438 games with like a 3.6 WAR. So you're talking about a guy who like hovers just below like a 1 WAR, which I mean, for the roles that he generally plays on the team, though, right? Like platoon guy, utility man, whatever. Like that's pretty much what you'd expect. You know what I mean? Like he's not over or under really performing his role. He seems to be one of those guys who has that role and fulfills that role,
And not just
which
one
is
role,
valuable, you know?
multi-position,
Yeah,
multi-position
exactly.
coverage.
And in the spots that the Padres need, right? Like somewhat of a question
First and
mark
left.
at first base, like at least defensively, if a Rise is going to lock it down at first base, he's not necessarily thought of as a big glove guy.
No,
Joe can play there, and then same thing, right? Hole in left field. Guess what? Joe can play there. Even if Tatis needs a day off his feet or whatever, put him in right field. Actually got a cannon, so really good pickup. It just again, he fulfills the role and he just slots in really well, I think, with what the Padres needed, and then again too, like hometown kid. So always love seeing that too.
you got to think that there are other teams out there that went, wait, he was only $1 million?
I know,
Like I
has to
feel like
be.
that's a bargain bin fine. We just dug deep enough.
I think he's only played for the Pirates.
He also
Did
played
he?
for
Oh,
Colorado.
San Francisco. Oh no, I'm way off. San Francisco, Colorado, and um, Pittsburgh. So he's hopped around quite a bit, but yeah, great find, great fit. I think he's maybe everyday guy. We don't know. I guess it depends on if any more moves are made, but I think yeah, like we said, we could probably platoon him against lefties and then slot him in kind of wherever you need elsewhere. But
We'll get
a good
playtime.
fit. Yep. And then the last move that I have on here, Jason Hayward, the veteran, 35-year-old outfielder. Um, Probably going to slot him in left field. I think that's pretty much a given.
Ooh,
But interesting move. And same thing, actually. I think it's 1 year, $1 million. So, I mean, how could you be? I can't really be mad at any of those, like
no.
1 year, $1 million deals, right?
So we're seeing a common theme with Preller, and that is the mix of free agent veterans who have been there, right? So a couple years prior, it was Nelson Cruz and what's his name, Matt Carpenter, right?
Hmm.
Two veterans, good clubhouse guys, playing a role in the team, playing often. This last year, it was Solano and Peralta,
Hmm.
both great clubhouse guys, both plug
Hmm.
and play. Now you've got Hayward, who has
Yep.
been notoriously a great clubhouse guy, a gold glove defender, and someone who will be in the outfield. Let's not forget who he's with, right? He's with Merrill, a young sophomore year center fielder, and then Tatis, who, while he's been around for many seasons, is still a younger cat
Yep.
and is raised by Tatis Sr. And a figure like Hayward
Hmm.
will probably resonate in the way that Tatis Sr. gives advice to him. So I like the pickup for the clubhouse. I'm not
Hmm.
excited about the bat. I hope his defense holds up. But at the end of the day, everyone has an ad value piece, and they're
Hmm.
not all going to be in one column. And
Yeah.
his is deeper on the cultural side. So really
Yep.
excited to have him at that low of a price. If it was
Yeah.
anything more, I'd be upset.
Yeah,
But
and I mean, we're talking about a guy too who, right, like obviously had a great start to his career, then scuffled for a while, but just 2 years ago, I think it was, he had like a 2 or 3 WAR season with the Dodgers and played 150 games or something like that. So it's not unheard of for him to, have little sparks of of himself here and
let,
there.
let's not forget where these two come from too. I mean, you just talked about where they were. You have Connor Joe, who's familiar with the Colorado organization very well, and then you've got Hayward, who is not far removed from being a Dodger. And you can't tell me from a scouting perspective, being able to take that in recently, that has add value too. I think there's something to that, especially with a Hayward. More importantly, with him being a former Dodger and being a veteran and being around the block and knowing what to look for and how they do things. I think we'd be naive to say that Dodgers do things a certain way that is in many ways positive, and being able to take certain pieces of culture and implement it here. who's to say we're opposed to it? We're not trying to be them, but there's definitely positives that you can take from a lot of organizations and try and craft it into your own. So excited to
Hmm.
see what he does there.
Yeah, and then also too, like we were just talking about with the competition for the five spot in the rotation, like a little bit of competition now, right? Like before we're like, oh, we got no one to fill this outfield spot, but now you've got a Hayward, a Joe, and then I'm sure some of these prospects that you're looking into, obviously, who we're not aware of, who are all fighting for that one spot again, which again is great. And I know that's something Mike Schilt has talked about. Like one of the things he loves about spring training is right, he loves the competition. And I love it too. I love seeing that, right? Like who wants it the most, who's got it, and so that's fun to see, especially when you do have, right, you got the veteran, you've got kind of like that middle of career guy, and then you've got these new kids coming up. Like it creates an interesting dynamic and it creates some storylines, obviously, for us to follow. And then obviously, going to get our product on the field. Really exciting stuff. And it's, that's what makes us excited heading into spring training is exactly stuff like this.
Yeah, I think the one of the things that I'm really looking forward to this spring training is watching a prospect that no one has on their radar. Whichever the best hitting prospect is going to win a bench spot and potentially a starting role in left or in DH. There's those roles that are available to who's hot going into the season, and it'll be fun to see who that is. We don't know. I don't know, but there's a
Yeah.
spring training hit fest ready for
Hmm.
us to watch, and getting to see Schilt back in front of all the cameras, the interviewers fired me up. That guy
Yep.
is just as we remembered him, but just with even more
I
energy.
know. I know. He's great. He's a, yeah, I love the skipper. I think I haven't watched too many of like the interviews and whatnot that they've had so far, but I did catch like part of one of Mike Schultz, and I think just in like the 3 second snippet, he had like one of my favorite quotes because it was just so genuine. You could hear it in his voice how he's like, he's like, this is freaking awesome. He's like, this is like the best day of the year.
Top
It's when
five
they
days
show
of
up
the
again.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was it. Top five. This has got to be top five. Like I love, and you could hear the enthusiasm, um, and the passion in his voice, and I think that obviously resonates to the team, but then also to right to all the San Diegans, right, all the fans. So I love to see that.
And that was before
Um,
the moves.
yeah,
Before all the
yeah,
moves.
exactly. That was just the first day of spring training here. Last thing before I think we're gonna sign off for the day. Give me just for funsies. Give me starting day lineup as it stands right now. How are you seeing it play out?
Oh, on the spot. Okay.
Yeah,
Opening, is it a home opener or is it on the road?
I think it's home, and I think it's against the Braves. I think because I remember people saying, "Oh, Profar is going to be at Petco on opening day for the wrong team."
Okay.
I
Okay.
think I don't know. Don't quote me,
Okay.
but I think it's
Let's
home.
This is my ideal world. This is not what I think will happen, but this is my ideal. I
Yeah.
want I want King to be that opening day start.
Oh,
I
nice.
love what he did last year. I think he earned an opening day start. Realistically, I think you will take it or cease. But
Yeah,
I'm going King starting, and we'll
love it.
go behind the dish first. We're gonna go with
Oh no,
Diaz.
I want the starting lineup. Give me the lineup.
Okay, okay. Batting first for your San Diego Padres. I'm gonna get the people excited. We're going with Tatis.
Ooh.
Tatis in the leadoff spot,
Okay.
followed by
Hmm.
Luis Arias
Hmm.
in the two spot,
Hmm.
followed by
At is he DHing or is he in the field?
look. You can't give me all these. I was
Okay.
going around the
Okay.
horn. Now you're
Fine.
asking me to
Sorry.
think of
Just
one.
go. Just go. Keep rolling.
We've got Machado batting
Uh-huh.
three. We've got Bogarts batting in the four.
Uh-huh.
Give me. Oh no! Rewind. There's a
Hmm.
big player I just missed. Tatis leading off. Give me. No, 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 no. This is my last one. You're gonna have to get this out. Okay, okay. Padre fans, ready, go. It is going to be Merrill leading off. Your
Oh,
new
I love
leadoff
it.
hitter
I
for the
love
San
that.
Diego Padres is Jackson, the man Merrill,
I love it.
followed by Luis Arias,
Hmm.
followed by Toddy and Machado
Hmm.
and Bogarts
Hmm.
and Diaz
Oh, okay.
and Cronenworth
Okay.
and
I think you
let's
got
go
two
with
more.
Hayward
Okay.
as the Braves.
Yeah.
Little payback.
Uh-huh.
And then slotted DH. Oh, who's our DH? TBD. Put DH at 9.
TBD. Awesome.
TBD at 9.
I love the Merrill in the leadoff spot, by the way.
I would be
Let
flattered.
me before we end it here, I'm gonna say I'm gonna go Arise, Tatis. I mean, that's pretty pragmatic, I think. Arise, Tatis, Machado. Then give me Merrill in the 4 hole.
Woo!
Then give me Bogarts, Cronenworth, Diaz, Hayward, Joe, probably. I
Yeah.
think that's my lineup.
Can I say
Uh,
something I love about Merrill in the 4? How often do we see the 4 hitter get egotistical and want to hit the ball over the wall when I think the 4 hole hitter really just needs to be able to get the run in? That
mhm.
man can get the run in and not put the home run on his back. He will hit the ground ball up the middle with infielders back. He
I
will
love
hit
it.
a fly ball to opposite field to get the run in from third. That man
Yep.
can do it. I'm
Yep.
excited.
I love it. I loved him in the first, like the 1 hole. It's me excited too, just because the energy he brings, and I feel like I could see him even running a little bit more on the bases this year. Who knows? But regardless, I think that covers it. Spring training is going to be starting very soon. There's probably still some more moves to make, but that covers it. This was a fun episode. As always, my name's Vince. This is my partner, Brandon. We're the Friarside Chat. Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you all in the next one.
Go Pirates.
Go Pods!